So I'm here in Transnistria, which is technically a country that doesn't exist. Still very much supported, I think, by the Russians. It has been kind of, it's like a time capsule, still stuck in time. It was in the Soviet Union along with Moldova, and then has since sort of declared self-independence, but no other country in the world recognises it. So it's sort of in this limbo type situation, really, where it's been very much kind of like a Soviet time capsule in many ways, actually. It's very weird. It's very, very weird. So there's still sort of statues of Lenin, there's still, it's got its own currency, it's got its own military. Don't know how much that's actually supported or backed by the Russians, but it's got a lot of those sorts of things sort of set up, and it sees itself as independent. It has its own border crossing where you have to get a sort of 10-hour visa, which I'll show you the screenshot of what mine looks like. And on the sort of exit side, the Moldovans, there's no border crossing, because as far as Moldova is concerned, and a lot of the other countries of the world, this is Moldova. But to Transnistria, it is its own independent state. A lot of governments don't recommend you travel here, recommend against travel, certainly the UK government does. But I think that's more because of the very delicate diplomatic situation that exists, more than sort of a safety risk per se, or certainly that's my perception of the situation. But what's really fascinating about it is it's kind of got all of these very interesting Soviet-esque sort of things, but it's kind of a bit dystopian, I'd say. It's only about an hour from Chisinau, so really close. And yeah, it's sort of its own kind of authority, I suppose, in some regard. So it's all a bit kind of, yeah, a bit strange. This is a main road that's kind of quiet, and this is the very epic looking railway station, which is very impressive, all abandoned, apparently very Stalin-esque in terms of its architecture. Pretty cool looking building. And this is the cinema, which is probably the most elaborate cinema you're ever going to see, or certainly that I've ever seen. This is something you don't see all too often, actually, in a lot of the former Soviet republics. Most of these statues are taken down, but here you can see that there is a statue of Lenin. So this abandoned building was a port back in the Soviet times and is now obviously abandoned, but obviously this was something that made this area a load of money. It's on this river, and this is now completely obviously abandoned, and it's just quiet. Really quiet. Everywhere you go, there's a person and a dog there, and a few people there, and there are cars, but it's almost like you have to walk around and whisper. So this is a culture hall. Some of you may have watched the video in Armenia where we explore an abandoned culture hall. These are some Soviet mosaics. So this one is basically celebrating Soviet culture, and then on this far side here you can see a different mosaic which is celebrating Soviet agriculture. And these culture halls would be very much about sort of having somewhere for people to go and do sort of sports, gymnastics, gym, watch movies, and things like that. I'm now going to very much butcher this, but so basically it's sort of called Transnistria is one name, and then the Russian name for it, and then this is what I'm going to butcher, is Transnistria, which is the name that they actually prefer. And yeah, so this is I'm just outside the culture hall, and as I said, this is where they would have gone for kind of activities, things like that. They had libraries as well. Very much, in my opinion, reading between the lines, you know, it was a great place for them to come and watch movies and sort of engage in the cinema, which obviously the Soviet authorities controlled. So in some regards it would have been, and this is my personal opinion and nothing more, a perfect way to push out some propaganda, some pro-Soviet propaganda. And the mosaics kind of hint at that, because they're very much sort of celebrating all these amazing things that we're good at. Having it explained to me, this is a police checkpointy traffic thing, but these apartments right in front of you here, in 1992 I believe, when the Moldovan tanks came into Transnistria, the very top apartment, I'll see if I can zoom in, the whole top of those apartment buildings were bombed out by the tanks that came in here in 1992. So this is an old Soviet tank, and this is already commemorating the day when the Moldovan tanks came in here, and obviously a very difficult period for everyone involved. As you can see, this is you can see at the back there's the flag, that's the flag of Transnistria, which is the old Moldovan Soviet Republic flag, which they've kept. And this is a pretty incredible, cool tank. Is the Russian flag next to the flag for this area, which doesn't exist technically. Russian military here, definitely, at checkpoints and things like that. And the Russian flag flying in places that you just wouldn't expect, which makes me wonder, because Moldova as a country, this is a Soviet tank from World War II that's behind me, which says "for the motherland" on the side of it. But what's really interesting is Moldova's a candidate to join the EU, and you can't help but wonder this area is going to be a problem for them, because it's heavily influenced by Russia. It's heavily supporting of Russia, this area. Moldova as a country is obviously not. It's very much in support of Ukraine. But the Russian flag is flying. You might be able to see it behind me. If not, I'll put a clip to it. And this will be a problem, because how do you reconcile this area that's heavily under Russian influence? Someone I was talking to was saying that one of the problems that they've had actually is that Russians have claimed to invest very heavily in Transnistria, in this sort of country that doesn't exist, sort of thing. And really, in reality, that money just hasn't really seen the light of day in terms of infrastructure, in terms of things improving. And they're sort of saying, you know, it's basically a way of money laundering. So it does beg an interesting question of how that's going to be managed. Time for emergency caffeination. Etiquette line. Спасибо. We have our money. Спасибо. Currently we're tasting this. What is this? Яблоко. Oh wow. Very strong, very tasty. Pickled apple. This is the place for children and youth creativity. and I was just being told that Transnistria is actually wanting to attract digital nomads. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but they want to, because I guess it brings in money. But with all the digital nomad places that I know you can go, I'm not entirely sure how this one ranks, but it's quite cool in a strange dystopian way. So this is the government building. It's quite interesting because you might not be able to see in this video, but on the top of the building you've got the Transnistria flag, which kind of is a given, I suppose, and then you've also got right next to it the Russian flag, and that's on the government building. I just asked about elections, and technically yes, they do have elections, but in the phrase that was used was the people who are elected by the people, but they're also never not elected. So take from that what you want. So just when you thought this can't get any weirder, it just did, because across here there's a school, and in front of the school I was told that one of the places that I simply had to come and see was a monument to Harry Potter. There it is. In a country that doesn't exist, that is still very much reminiscent of the Soviet Union, and in the middle of the town there's a monument to Harry Potter.
Так,